The Baltimore Ravens just made a massive move that's sending waves across the entire NFL. And if you're a Ravens fan, you've got every reason to be fired up right now. Kyle Hamilton, yes, the do-it-all safety, the defensive Swiss Army knife, just secured a 4-year, $100 million extension. Let me say that again, $100 million. This guy just became the highest-paid safety in football, and honestly, it feels like a win not just for Hamilton, but for the entire Ravens organization. The front office did their job. The player earned every bit of that deal. And now, Baltimore keeps one of the most versatile, dominant defensive backs in the league locked in through the end of the decade. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Head coach John Harbaugh didn't exactly play it cool about what's next. In fact, he practically shouted from the rooftops that this is not the last big extension coming down the pipeline. He dropped a little joke about Hamilton footing the bill for an ice cream truck at practice. Yeah, a classic Harbaugh moment. But then immediately followed it up by saying, this isn't the end of it. So naturally, the fan base is buzzing. Who's next? Are we about to see more long-term commitments before the season kicks off? Because if so, Baltimore isn't just building for this year. They're laying the foundation for the next 5, maybe even 10 seasons. Now let's circle back to Kyle Hamilton, because this isn't just about numbers or contracts. This is about what the guy brings on the field. And let me tell you, there aren't many players in this league, let alone safeties, who can do what Hamilton does. He's not just a ball hawk. He's not just a thumper in the box. He's a legitimate chess piece that Baltimore can move all over the field depending on the situation. You want him in single high? No problem. Need someone to line up in the slot and take on tight ends or quick slot receivers. Done. He can play up at the line like an extra linebacker. He can drop into zone. He can man up, blitz, spy quarterbacks. You name it, Hamilton does it. That's why this extension makes so much sense. Because you're not just paying for a traditional safety. You're paying for a defensive weapon. And the numbers behind this deal reflect that. According to reports, Hamilton's contract includes over $82 million in guarantees. That's a staggering number, and it shows just how much the Ravens value him. Not just as a player, but as a long-term leader on this defense. The signing bonus alone was nearly $27 million, and by the end of the first new league year, Hamilton will have brought in over $43 million in new money. These are record-breaking numbers for the safety position. The Ravens didn't just reset the market, they blew it up. And here's what makes it all the more impressive. Kyle Hamilton hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. This guy is just entering his prime. Only a few years into his career, and already he's become one of the most impactful players on this roster. The fact that Baltimore got this deal done now, before the season, before the market could jump again, before other safeties cashed in and drove up the price even more, it shows that general manager Eric DeCosta is still playing chess, while other front offices are playing checkers. And Harbaugh didn't just praise Hamilton's play. He made it clear this is the kind of guy you build around. When the team gathered after practice and Hamilton was handed the mic, the atmosphere was electric. This wasn't just about a big contract. It was about recognizing a player who embodies what this franchise is all about: toughness, versatility, football IQ, leadership. That's what you're paying for. That's why you open the vault. And clearly, the Ravens are sending a message to the rest of the league. We're not here to mess around. We're not just loading up for one playoff push. We're locking in our core and going all in on a Super Bowl window that's wide open right now. But again, it doesn't stop there. Harbaugh's comment, "This isn't the end of it," isn't just a passing remark. It's a warning shot. The Ravens are moving fast, and they're trying to get more key players extended before the season begins. And that timing is important. Once the regular season starts, Baltimore typically shuts down major contract negotiations. They don't want distractions. They don't want deals lingering in the background while guys are trying to focus on Sundays. So if something's going to happen, it's going to happen soon. So naturally, that brings up the big question: who's next? Lamar Jackson already got his mega deal. Kyle Hamilton's now locked in. But there are other names on that list, and some of them are major. You've got Tyler Linderbaum, the anchor of that offensive line. You've got playmakers like Zay Flowers, who's already flashing star potential. You've got veterans like Mark Andrews and Marlon Humphrey, guys who have been foundational pieces for years. And then there's the quiet storm brewing around the rest of the roster. Names like Adaf Owa, Isaiah Likely, Travis Jones, and even younger guys who could turn into critical pieces over the next year or two. DaCosta and Harbaugh know they can't keep everybody. That's just the reality of the salary cap. And to their credit, they've been open about that. Eric DaCosta literally came out and said it point blank, "We're in a salary cap league. We can't keep everybody." That kind of honesty is rare in front offices, and frankly, it's refreshing. Because they're not sugarcoating anything. They're not pretending that this version of the Ravens will be around forever. They're focused on maximizing the window they have right now, while building smartly for the future. And one name that's definitely in the spotlight is Tyler Linderbaum. The Ravens made the calculated decision not to pick up his fifth-year option, and that wasn't about talent. That was about money. That option would have cost over $23 million for a single season. And with Creed Humphrey setting the center market at $18 million per year, Baltimore didn't want to lock themselves into a precedent-setting deal before they had to. But make no mistake, Linderbaum is one of the best young centers in the league. He's tough, smart, mobile, exactly the kind of guy you want protecting Lamar Jackson. And if you believe he's your guy for the next decade, now's the time to get a long-term deal done before his price goes through the roof. So again, the gears are turning in Baltimore. We might see another deal get announced any day now. Maybe it's Linderbaum. Maybe it's someone else. But what's clear is that the front office is operating with urgency. And that's what you want to see. Because this roster, top to bottom, is absolutely stacked. On paper, this is one of the best teams the Ravens have fielded in years. You've got Lamar in his prime. You've got Derrick Henry bringing that downhill thunder. You've got Zay Flowers emerging. The tight end room is deep, and the defense is loaded with young, hungry talent. But here's the thing, and this is something Kyle Hamilton himself said during his press conference. Rosters like this don't come around very often. You only get so many chances to make a serious run. Yes, as long as you have Lamar, you've got a shot. But when everything lines up like this, with this much talent, this much continuity, and this much momentum, you have to capitalize. That's why every move the front office makes right now matters. That's why getting Hamilton locked in wasn't just a win, it was a necessity. And speaking of winning, that's the only thing that matters now. All the off-season speculation, all the contract talk, all the press conferences and training camp updates, that's all behind us. The regular season is right around the corner. The Ravens open against the Buffalo Bills, and the spotlight will be on from the first snap. Expectations are sky high. Fans are ready. The locker room knows what's at stake. And as far as I can tell, this team is locked in and laser-focused. So when John Harbaugh says this isn't the end of the extensions, believe him. When Eric DaCosta hints that more work is being done quietly behind the scenes, take it seriously. The Ravens are on a mission. And they know that the moves they make in these final weeks before the season could define not just this year, but the next 5. Baltimore isn't just planning for September. They're planning for February. They're planning for rings. They're planning for banners. And with Kyle Hamilton now officially signed, sealed, and delivered, one of the biggest dominoes has fallen. What happens next? We'll be watching every minute. While the Kyle Hamilton deal was the headline grabber, there's another massive part of this story that deserves real attention. The finalization of the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, and what that tells us about how this team is planning for depth, injury contingencies, and long-term development. And I've got to be honest, this wasn't just a quiet little list drop. There were surprises, some interesting omissions, and a couple of eyebrow-raising claims from other teams that shook things up just a bit. Let's start with the obvious. The Ravens practice squad is now set. Well, at least for now, because we all know how fluid these things can be throughout the season. Injuries hit, guys get called up, released, shuffled around. But as it stands, the Ravens managed to bring back a really solid group of veterans, promising young talent, and some players that honestly could contribute on Sundays if their number gets called. This is one of the reasons why Baltimore has been able to sustain success for so long. It's not just about the starters. It's about building a 53-man roster and then stocking a practice squad that can keep the train rolling when adversity hits. The headliner here, without question, is Tyler Huntley. A lot of fans were wondering if he'd be back, and honestly, it felt like a coin flip for a while. But here he is, back in Baltimore on the practice squad, and that's a huge insurance policy for the quarterback room. We know Lamar is the guy, no question. Josh Johnson showed enough to lock in that backup role. But Huntley is familiar with the system, he knows the staff, and if something goes sideways, he's the kind of guy who can step in without completely derailing the offense. He's not flashy, but he's steady, and that matters. Then you've got names like Malik Ham and Chandler Martin, guys who've been getting a lot of buzz throughout the offseason. Both had moments in camp and preseason where they really popped off the screen. For Ham especially, who's a local product, this feels like the continuation of a great story. He showed that he belongs, and even if he's not on the 53 right now, don't be surprised if he gets elevated early in the season, especially if injuries hit that edge group. But of course, for every player that made it, there were some surprising losses. The Ravens had 3 players claimed off waivers, which is actually the second highest total in the entire league this year. That's not a coincidence. That tells you how deep this roster is and how much other teams around the NFL are paying attention to Baltimore's talent pool. Jalen Armour-Davis was one of those guys. He ends up with the Titans, and yeah, that one stings a little. Not because he was going to be a starter necessarily, but because he had a really solid preseason and looked like he was finally putting things together. This was a former 4th-round pick who had the tools, and now he's gone. Same thing with defensive lineman Razad Nichols, another guy who flashed, made plays, showed some serious push up the middle. He's off to Tennessee as well. And Bo Braid, who had a quietly strong camp, ends up getting claimed by the Giants. Again, not necessarily guys who were locked-in starters, but losing developmental players with upside always hurts a little, especially when you saw them taking real steps forward over the last few months. Then there were a couple of players who didn't get claimed, but still didn't return to the Ravens practice squad, which was kind of puzzling. One of the biggest head-scratchers? Andrew Voorhees. The 7th-rounder didn't land on the practice squad, which either means Baltimore didn't want him back, or he chose to explore other opportunities. And that's always a possibility. Sometimes a player and his agent think there's a better path to playing time somewhere else. Still, for a team that prides itself on offensive line development, it's strange not to see him back in the building. Same goes for Darian Dalcourt, who some folks had graded even higher than Ben Cleveland at one point. He's not on the practice squad either. So that interior offensive line depth? Yeah, it's suddenly a little thinner than we thought it might be. Now I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you go into a draft with 11 picks, the odds are stacked against all 11 making the final roster. That's just the math. And when you add in the fact that a couple of undrafted free agents ended up sticking as well, something had to give. That's part of why you saw guys like Nichols and Armour-Davis squeezed out, and maybe why the front office didn't have the appetite to fight to bring back others. It's not personal, it's roster math. But don't get it twisted. Baltimore's practice squad still has some real juice. You've got Brent Urban, a savvy veteran who can still give you quality snaps in a pinch. You've got CJ Okoye, the International Pathway Program guy with freakish size who continues to develop. You've got developmental projects like Cameron Rucker and Nick Samak who might not be ready now, but could turn into depth options by midseason. There's some intrigue here. And if you're looking at who might be the first to get called up once we hit game days, I'd put my money on Zaire Mitchell-Payton. With Isaiah likely dealing with an injury and maybe not ready for week 1, Zaire is a logical elevation to fill that tight end spot. He knows the system. He's been grinding. It would make total sense. Same thing goes for Thomas Graham in the secondary. He's shown flashes, and if there's an injury, he could be a plug-and-play option on the back end. So yeah, the practice squad might not be sexy, but in Baltimore, it matters. The Ravens have consistently mined real contributors from this group. Whether it's for special teams or injury replacements, these guys are more than just placeholders. They're the next man up. And given how brutal the NFL season can be, having that safety net is absolutely critical. Now zooming out a bit, this whole situation reinforces something we've been saying for a while. The Ravens roster is deep, versatile, and extremely well-constructed. You look at the names that didn't make the cut and ended up elsewhere, and it tells you how competitive things have gotten. And that competition? That's a great thing. Because iron sharpens iron, and this is a team that's been forged in that fire over the last few years. Let's not forget how we got here. After that brutal stretch of injuries 2 seasons ago, the Ravens made a point of rebuilding not just their starting lineup, but the depth chart behind it. They brought in proven veterans. They drafted smart. They hit on mid-round picks. And now you're seeing the results. This isn't just a top-heavy team built around a couple of stars. This is a complete, balanced roster with talent across the board. And that's important, because, like we mentioned earlier, not everyone's going to stick around long-term. It's just not possible. Guys like Mark Andrews, Marlon Humphrey, even Adaf Oa, there's no guarantee they'll all be in Baltimore 3 years from now. That's just the reality of the business. But while you have them, and while this roster is at full strength, you push all your chips in. You go for it. That's why I keep coming back to the Hamilton deal, because it represents more than just a payday for a star player. It's a signal that this front office understands the moment. They're reading the room. They know the time is now. And instead of playing it safe, they're making bold moves to lock in the pieces they believe can take this team to the next level. So yeah, there's still work to do. Maybe another extension gets done. Maybe we see some more shuffling on the practice squad before week 1. But overall, Baltimore has put itself in a phenomenal position heading into the regular season. They've got a loaded roster. They've got quality depth. They've got a front office that's not afraid to pull the trigger when it matters most. And they've got a coaching staff that knows how to maximize the talent they have. Now it's time to let it all play out. The preseason is over. The roster is set. The practice squad is locked in. And the next time we see these guys on the field, it's going to be for real. Every snap will count. Every decision will matter. And with the expectations sky high, you better believe the Ravens are walking into this season with a chip on their shoulder and fire in their eyes. This is a team that believes it can win the whole thing. And when you look at the moves they've made, Hamilton's extension, the players they kept, the ones they were willing to let go, it's clear they're not just hoping for a deep run. They're planning for it. This is a franchise that's setting the tone early, sending a message to the rest of the NFL. We're coming, and we're not coming quietly. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Whispers have begun circulating in the NFL circles, igniting a storm of speculation and excitement among fans and analysts alike. Zay Flowers, the young, electrifying wide receiver whose agility and playmaking ability have made him a standout in Baltimore, is reportedly preparing to leave the Ravens, a move that has sent shockwaves through the team's fanbase. Sources close to the organization hint that this departure is not a matter of if, but when, as the talks about trades and potential suitors intensify behind closed doors. The buzz suggests that Flowers, still in the early stages of his career, is eager to explore opportunities where he can fully unleash his dynamic talent, a notion that has intrigued multiple franchises seeking to add a game-changing presence to their offensive arsenal. The excitement around this rumored move is palpable, with sports insiders debating which teams have the cap space, draft capital, and immediate need to entice Baltimore to part ways with one of its brightest young stars. Fans have taken to social media, speculating endlessly about Flowers' potential destinations, analyzing team rosters, offensive schemes, and quarterback chemistry, all in an effort to predict where this rising star will ultimately land. Every source seems to offer a slightly different angle, fueling the rumor mill even further and creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and anticipation around the young receiver's next chapter. The notion of Flowers flourishing in a new environment has created endless debate, with analysts projecting how his explosive speed, precise route running, and knack for making contested catches could reshape an offense desperate for a highlight reel weapon. Even casual followers of the league are captivated by the story, as the idea of a young player breaking away from the team that drafted him adds an element of drama rarely seen outside of blockbuster trades. The potential move has set the sports media into overdrive, with speculation growing into a frenzy reminiscent of high-profile NFL trades of the past, where rumors alone can sway public perception and even influence organizational decisions. Zay Flowers' departure from the Ravens is being treated as a seismic shift, one that could impact not only the team's passing game, but also the wider dynamics of the AFC. Analysts have begun dissecting every possible trade scenario, evaluating which franchises could benefit most from acquiring a player with Flowers' unique skill set. Discussions about salary cap implications, rookie contract considerations, and draft pick leverage dominate headlines and airwaves, as teams are reportedly making strategic calculations to position themselves for a potential deal. Fans and commentators alike are envisioning the explosive plays Flowers could produce in a system tailored to his strengths, imagining him stretching defenses vertically, creating mismatches against cornerbacks, and becoming a primary red zone target for a quarterback looking for a reliable deep threat. Rumors suggest that multiple teams are aggressively monitoring the situation, quietly laying the groundwork for conversations with the Ravens front office, each one hoping to secure Flowers before his stock reaches its peak. Social media platforms are alive with mock trades, GIF compilations, and highlight reels that underscore Flowers' potential impact, feeding the narrative that he could flourish dramatically if given a fresh start. The fervor around this development is further heightened by the timing, with the league in a state of flux as teams look to finalize rosters and strategize for upcoming drafts and free agency moves. Insider chatter suggests that Flowers himself may be receptive to change, signaling a willingness to embrace a team where his role could expand and his talents could be showcased more prominently, a scenario that excites both fans and analysts who relish the drama of high-stakes player movement. The cascading effect of this rumor is impossible to ignore, as every speculative report adds layers to the story, creating a compelling saga that seems to grow with each passing hour. Sources hint at the possibility that Zay Flowers' move could catalyze a ripple effect across the league, with other wide receivers and offensive players potentially impacted by the domino of trades that might follow. While the Ravens would lose a young, dynamic weapon in their aerial attack, the receiving core in potential destination teams could see a radical transformation, boosting offensive versatility and explosive capability. Analysts and insiders are mapping out the chain reaction of draft picks, free agent maneuvers, and salary adjustments that would accompany such a high-profile transaction. The anticipation of Flowers' next move is almost theatrical, as every rumor carries with it layers of strategic implications that affect coaches, general managers, and even front office negotiators looking for leverage in other deals. This swirling speculation feeds a heightened sense of urgency and intensity, drawing attention from casual fans and diehard followers alike, all of whom are eager to see how this young athlete's career trajectory could change overnight. Sports talk shows are dissecting Flowers' strengths and weaknesses with surgical precision, comparing his potential impact in different offensive schemes and quarterback pairings, often generating heated debates about which team would maximize his skill set most effectively. Imaginations run wild, envisioning touchdown celebrations, highlight catches, and pivotal plays in high-stakes games that could define playoff runs. Meanwhile, agents, scouts, and coaches are likely crunching data behind the scenes, calculating every conceivable scenario to predict Flowers' optimal landing spot. The rumor mills are not just speculating about the logistics of a trade. They are narrating the unfolding drama of opportunity, career growth, and organizational strategy that surrounds a player with elite talent and untapped potential. The anticipation is almost tangible, with every snippet of information being magnified into speculation about the kind of legacy Flowers might carve in a new environment, transforming both his career and the fortunes of the team that lands him. The allure of a young star ready to break out in a new home resonates deeply with the fan base, evoking the thrill of witnessing the beginning of a transformative era in professional football. Every corner of the football world is buzzing with chatter as pundits and insiders weigh the likelihood of Zay Flowers' departure, scrutinizing timing, team fit, and coaching philosophies that might influence the move. The Ravens, reportedly in delicate negotiations, are considering not just the immediate impact of losing a key offensive contributor, but also the long-term ramifications on team chemistry and fan sentiment. This potential exit has sparked conversations about succession planning, draft strategy, and how to fill the void left by a player who has already demonstrated remarkable explosiveness and reliability on the field. The rumor is particularly tantalizing because it combines uncertainty with opportunity, offering a narrative in which Flowers could thrive in a setting that aligns perfectly with his style of play, while the Ravens retool and reassess their offensive identity. Analysts speculate that a team willing to offer Flowers a prominent role, paired with a quarterback capable of taking advantage of his speed and field awareness, could see immediate results that alter their competitive standing. Social media amplifies every nugget of insider information, with fans dissecting quotes, interview hints, and even cryptic team statements for clues about the imminent move. The sports world thrives on such stories, where a combination of talent, timing, and tactical considerations converge to create an atmosphere of suspense and eager anticipation. Rumors also suggest that Flowers' camp is strategically navigating the landscape, balancing the desire for playing time and career growth against financial considerations, contract duration, and long-term stability, creating a complex web of negotiations that captivates the public. The potential for Flowers to flourish in a new environment is the central thread of this ongoing speculation, fueling endless debates about which team has the vision, offensive design, and patience to maximize his considerable talents. Fans, analysts, and team executives alike are drawn into a vortex of conjecture, unable to separate fact from hopeful projection, yet invigorated by the possibility of witnessing a young star elevate to even greater heights in the NFL. Amidst all the speculation, the allure of Zay Flowers thriving in a fresh setting is the narrative that continues to dominate headlines and conversations. The prospect of a young wide receiver breaking away from the confines of his current situation evokes a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and competitive intrigue. Every potential landing spot is analyzed through the lens of offensive philosophy, quarterback compatibility, and roster balance, as analysts attempt to forecast where Flowers' unique combination of speed, hands, and field vision could best translate into game-changing performances. The rumor, by its very nature, encourages fans to envision the explosive impact he could have on Sundays, whether it's torching defenses downfield, creating clutch moments in tight games, or becoming a cornerstone of a team's identity for years to come. Coaches and front office executives are similarly engaged in a mental chess game, balancing short-term gains against long-term strategy, as they weigh the risks and rewards of investing in a player who has already demonstrated elite potential yet remains young enough to redefine his trajectory. In this swirling cauldron of conjecture, the narrative is enhanced by dramatic hypotheticals and calculated predictions, generating intense interest in not only the player himself, but also the broader implications of his departure for league dynamics. Social media chatter is relentless, with fans creating highlight reels, mock trades, and scenario analyses, feeding a cycle of rumor and excitement that shows no signs of slowing. The idea of Flowers flourishing elsewhere encapsulates the essence of NFL drama, where talent, opportunity, and timing collide to produce stories that captivate the imagination and fuel endless debate. As speculation continues, the consensus among insiders is clear: wherever Zay Flowers lands, the NFL landscape is likely to be shaken, a young star poised to flourish, electrify, and redefine the expectations for a wide receiver who refuses to be constrained by his current circumstances. The narrative is rich with potential, teeming with what-ifs, and steeped in the thrilling uncertainty that makes professional football so compelling, leaving fans and analysts alike waiting with bated breath for the next twist in the saga of a young player on the verge of transformation. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.